Hi there, Liam here from Hydro. I'm going to do a video today about Najade fins. Najade fins, marina fins, Hungarian fin swimming fins. Because I got a couple of questions about them recently after I did a little video showing how to trim them. So basically this is all about, I've got some notes, hopefully I don't remember anything. Don't forget anything important. So what are Najades and marina fins? So they're basically these little short things. Najades, marinas, very similar. Okay, fin swimming fins, they're all made in Hungary by a couple of different companies. Are there any others? Yes, there's a company called Power Fins from France. They've got some sort of similar ones, except they've got extra vanes on them, and they've got 3 different hardnesses. So these are kind of a bit of a fad, which have sort of come into the hockey sort of world in the last few years, and they're very, very popular in some countries. Obviously Hungary, very popular, but basically like in the New Zealand school system and the New Zealand sort of representative age group teams, these are about 95 to 98% of the players would be wearing these for the last years and years. Plus a lot of the elite teams as well. There's players from Australia, South Africa, Spain, all over. If they play hockey, people are starting to try these out. And it's easy to write them off at the start, which I wouldn't do. Because they look a bit different. They're quite short. Like, how weird is that? This is like your standard kind of hockey fin, quite long, lot shorter, right? And you kind of look at that and go, oh, what's that? But what some of the difference is, this is a standard hockey fin, and your foot goes in the pocket, and then you've got this big, strong, hard piece at the bottom, which runs out into the blade. So as your foot does your power stroke like this and pushes up that way, it's kind of pulling the blade through the water. And what this does is, instead of have the pocket go like this, and most fins drop off that way, because they're based on old diving fins where people had these big diving boots in and they basically couldn't straighten their heel. They couldn't do with their heel, their ankle, sorry. So you end up with these weird fins with these huge big angles, and that sort of carried through into a lot of modern fins. What the fin swimming fins do is they do the opposite. So you have your foot sitting like this, and then the actual angle of the fin is like that, so that when you do your push, the angle works against the force of the water, and then you get a bit more power from that. Probably, maybe, no. That's what it seems to be. So they're quite broad, but not super broad, and they do have these nice vanes, these nice big fins on them, similar to this with the Stratus sort of fins, like the old Technis Abala used to have, right? So these are pretty similar to the old Technis Abala. They used to have these big vanes on the side, and these vanes are awesome for turning. So if you turn and you don't have these vanes, like if you've got a set of Breyer custom foot pockets with basically just like a flat plane with really nothing to actually break it up, then you can feel those actually slide through the water, and it is a negative because you turn slower because of it. So this is an advantage, having these vanes as well as holding the fin stiffer. It also helps to stop it sliding through the water, and it means that you can turn better. And I've confirmed that with some testing at one stage. What next on my list? Differences between Najades. So first things first, a Najade isn't just a Najade. There's a bunch of different kinds of Najades. You have Najade sprints, which are these ones, which I think were probably first, the OG kind of thing. Then you've got Najade. They came out with an underwater version, UW, I think it's called. So if you go to the Najade site, it's like Najade UW, and we've looked into them. Technically, you'd think they'd be best for underwater hockey, but Taylor Wolf, who's a bit of a guru with these, did a bit of testing early on, and he basically found that the sprints are faster. And the reason, if you ask the Najade people, and this is the answer that we've got, is what's the difference between the sprints and the underwater ones? And they basically say, well, people were complaining that these are uncomfortable, so we made the underwater ones with a softer material around the pocket. to make them more comfy, something like that. But it actually makes them a little bit slower because you have softer material, which means less power transfer, and they're a tiny bit slower. So maybe they're slower, maybe they're not, but in New Zealand we've ended up just sticking with the sprints because they're not really that uncomfortable. They're not uncomfortable at all once you're used to them. And so rather speed. Even if they were uncomfortable, you talk to a lot of good players who'd say, well, I'd rather be slightly uncomfortable and be super fast and score that goal. Talk to people who used to wear leader fins, just shredded their feet, but they went nice and fast, and that was all they were worried about. So anyway, the other ones are Najade irons, which are the whole fin is made of a stiffer material, so more powerful. But you need either pretty grunty legs to run them, or just to spend a bit of time getting used to them. If you don't have particular strong ankles, or you've had problems with ankle tendons or whatever, then I definitely wouldn't use the irons. Just stay with the sprints. The irons are actually made of a slightly more brittle material as well, so it seems to be that they have slightly less of a life because the material is a bit more brittle, which means that they're more prone to having rips and stuff develop later down the track. And also, because it's a stiff material, they're more uncomfortable. So your foot is basically pushing against this big piece on the top here, and it can be very uncomfortable. So you might use irons, but you might get a piece of neoprene and just put a little piece of neoprene like that on the top of it to make it nice and comfy. So irons, so that's sprints, underwaters and irons. That is Najade's. Marinas are from a different manufacturer. They don't put the time and the money into marketing, so they don't look quite as flashy. But essentially they're very similar fin. You get it for an economy price. I like them. I actually wear them. I've worn them for the last few years. I've worn them for the last couple of Worlds. And I'm not a speed merchant, but it did the job for me. And the main difference is not much. These are basically equivalent to Najade sprints. Same sort of stiffness, same sort of feel. And I know a bunch of players who've basically broken it or lost a set of sprints and just grabbed a Marina. You stick one on each foot, you swim around in a game, you don't notice the difference. So there you go. Now the difference between the Najade's and other fins is basically that, yes, they're shorter, and as we talked about with the other fins, you've got this big sort of, the strong base is under your foot and you're pulling the blade through the water. Najade's, that strong piece is on top of your foot and you're pushing it through the water. So it's kind of reversed, depending on how you wear them. So this is kind of like one of the controversial things about Najade's, is that when you first look at them, you pick them up and you go, if you're used to wearing these fins, you pick them up and you go, oh, okay, oh, there we go, that looks like a likely entry point for my foot. Okay, and that's, the blade does what I'm expecting it to sort of look like. Okay, cool, and you stick your foot on like that. That is actually called mode 2 from the Najade people. They will call that mode 2, which is like easy mode. If you've never used these fins before, if you've never used any fins before, you pop your foot in like that, that's easy mode. It doesn't put a whole lot of stress on, and you don't get a whole heap of power. It's sort of like easy version. So what they recommend if you are wanting to go fast, and for us playing hockey is to flip them around, and then you can actually wear them the other way as well. And this is mode 2, power mode. Now it looks a bit weird. It looks like you wouldn't even be able to get them on like that, and this is what kind of does people's heads in a bit, because when you first try to put your foot through here, it's actually quite difficult. It's a bit weird. It feels weird. But the cool thing about it is that once you've got your foot in here, this thing here sits on the back of your, do it. Like that. So that actually sits up here, up on your heel, and you don't need fin keepers. You do not need fin keepers with these fins. So don't bother to buy fin keepers. They literally will not kick off. I've never ever had a Najade style fin kick off, and I haven't heard of anyone. Maybe if someone was really being a fool and tried to pull their kid off or something, but you don't need fin keepers, not like you do with these fins, not like you can with them. Alright, so that's the mode 1 and mode 2. Mode 2, with this up, the kind of, some people say you have to wear them upside down to make them, what? They tell me to wear them upside down? What kind of a fin is this? just don't worry about it, basically. Whether they're designed to be like this 20 years ago, and then someone had the magic idea of flipping them upside down, or they were always designed this way and they just look like what we expect a traditional fin to look like that way, so they seem upside down. It really doesn't matter. All that matters is they work like this. That's all you want to know. And they are much faster worn in power mode. Don't muck around with wearing them like this unless your legs are absolutely shafted and you've got a sore ankle and a broken foot and you're refereeing at the end of the day or something and you just want to be like, oh, you just can't even bother to do anything. Then just chuck them on. You might wear them like that. But once you're used to them, they're super comfortable like this. Super comfortable. And one of the differences between Najades and other fins is that it's much, much easier for you to bend your ankle and get a nice streamlined position with these, with your ankle, and basically have your foot, your ankle, your toe, and the blade running off the end. It's just really nicely, it's just nicely designed wearing a Najade fin, and it's probably part of the reason why they work so well, despite being a bit smaller and stuff. It's basically just the angles, the design. So you'd actually rather have them like this anyway. So, difference between Najade and other fins. So yeah, they don't have carbon fibre, they don't have other stuff, but they are quite thick, they're quite stiff. They're kind of heavy. They can be heavy to hold them in your hand outside the water, though they don't feel heavy in the water. Once you've used these for a while, and then you go back to something like this, or even like a brayer, full foot pocket brayer, these ones actually feel really heavy and laggy because they don't really kind of fit so streamlined on your foot. They don't run off your foot so streamlined. They feel like swimming around with bricks on your feet. So they get really, really comfy. And once you're used to them, I don't think you really move away from them. You kind of compare them to, like barefoot running feet, barefoot running shoes. Once you kind of got used to them, you don't want to go back to clumpy running shoes. It's kind of the same with this, I think. That's part of the thing. They are smaller, they fit in a bag, that's great, but it's purely only a bonus. So don't be thinking that's why people are wearing these. They wear these because they go fast, and they're good fins. Scissor or dolphin, yeah, you can use either. Different kick strokes. People who use like like a slow cadence and big kicks, you probably would end up going like increasing your cadence a bit with these, but you can still kick scissor, you can still kick dolphin. They both work, and there's lots of proponents for both with these fins, so you don't have to just do only one or the other. How you put them on. A lot of people have trouble with this when they try them for the first time. So the first rule about putting them on is never put them on dry, because it's just not going to work very well. To get them on properly, you really need to snug your foot right up into the pocket and get it in properly. And that means either, if you have nothing else, make sure you get them wet on the side of the pool, for one thing. And ideally, you'd have some kind of lubricant. So you have some kind of, like a lot of the guys in underwater hockey use silicone spray from, you can have like food safe silicone spray, or you can just use the silicone spray from like an automotive shop, just in a spray can. You just go put a little spray in there, and that helps to get your foot in nice and easily. You don't have to worry about it kicking off because it's slippery, because it holds so well on the back of your ankle. It does reduce a little bit the power from the fin, because basically the fin swimmers, the guys who just want to go super fast, as fast as possible for about 30 seconds in their race, or a couple of minutes, they'll put them on with soap, like bar soap. So they basically get a good lather up, and they'll put that lather all over their feet, and then they'll jam their feet on, and that means that their foot slides in really nicely at the start, and they also try and go for as small a size as possible. So I normally wear size 4, which is the last size, but if I was a fin swimmer, I'd probably be jamming my feet into size 3, and they'd be hurting for like a couple of minutes in the race, and then I pop them out, but I went fast, so I don't care. So with soap, you get in there nice and easily, and then how soap has that kind of gritty drying effect, that sort of gripping effect, once you've kind of started to wash it off. So then that would basically grip the foot in the pocket really well, and the less movement in the pocket, the less slippage you have, and the less power you're going to lose. So all the power from your leg is going to be transferred into the blade. That's what we want. For hockey, we don't really care so much about that. it's just a tiny fraction for one thing, but also we're going to be kicking around and accelerating and stopping for like half an hour or maybe an hour, maybe a couple of hours in a session. So if you use soap with these and go and play a hockey game, you are going to shred your feet, absolutely shred them. So I'd recommend just using some kind of lubricant. Can be detergent, silicone spray, something like that, just to get your foot in. So once you've got a little bit of lubricant in there, or maybe you've got like a neoprene sock on your foot or something that can help. So you basically grab either side tight, well, just one, because I'm going to use one in a second, and you basically stick your foot in like this and just jam your foot in as far as possible until you can feel your toes sticking on the end. So basically jam it in, and then you come down the bottom and you just slide that over the hip, over the heel. So try not to pull it back like a catapult. If you have new fins and people trying them on for the first time, they actually quite often break the heel strap because they basically get halfway in because they don't have lubricant and they didn't get the foot all the way in, and then I'll just kind of grab this and they'll pull it back like a slingshot over the heel and it just snaps, because this is basically just designed to keep your foot in the pocket. This strap doesn't need to be particularly strong, because every time you kick your fin, you're driving your foot into the pocket. So this only needs to kind of keep it on with a little bit of force, so it's not particularly strong. So anyway, hopefully I demonstrated that adequately. What else? What are we talking about? Getting fins on. Bit of lubricant, jam them on, slide. Yeah, so basically jam and then slide over the heel. And then when you take them off, exactly the opposite. You basically just slide that underneath the heel and then pull them off. That's easy. This is tiring doing this video. How to put them on, wet and dry. Sizing. So one of the drawbacks to these fins is there aren't many sizes. So there's size 2, 3 and 4. If you have mini feet, you might be size 2. Most female players are size 3. And then if you're a guy with smaller feet, you're probably size 3. And then most other guys with a bit larger feet are all size 4. If you're a girl with big feet, you might be size 4 as well. But the thing is, because there's only those 3 sizes, it means that almost everyone is halfway in between. You know, everyone is like a size and a half in between. So there's lots of ways that you can kind of pad out to make your fins fit comfortably. The first way is just to not even worry about it at all, and because they hang on your ankles so well and they don't kick off, you can basically just have a big size and just make sure you got a bit of lubricant on a bit of silicone in there so that you don't actually develop blisters. And you'll just kick around with slightly loose fins all session and pretty much be alright. And a lot of people just get away with that. If you really want to maximize your speed, then you want to try to start to reduce any of that movement in the pocket. Then you can use things like running shoe inserts. You basically just cut a running shoe insert just to sit in the bottom like that, so with the heel cut off. So it basically just sits in there and just packs it up a bit. You can use neoprene socks where you do the same thing. You can wear the whole sock if you want, or you can just sort of cut it off as like a half sock and then stick it in there. And you can get pretty hard out neoprene socks like this. We sell these. Or you can get super hard out and you can do something which is going to take you like probably an hour in the garage or something. And you can make yourself some custom sort of inserts. And so I'm going to show you mine, but apologies for how old and skanky this is going to look. So this was a sock. You can see my kind of feet in there. A sock with silicone mixed in there. So the basically just goes around my toes. That's all you kind of need, just to eliminate the movement at the end. And basically just goes over your toes like that. So now you've got this little sort of inserty bit in the end, and then you just jam it in the pocket. And the way you make something like this is get a pair of old socks. First you cover your foot in like Glad wrap or put it in a plastic bag or something to make sure you don't get it on your skin. And then you basically put your old sock on, get a whole lot of silicone. You can use all sorts of different kinds of silicone, something that's going to set in like 20 minutes. And then basically just dollop it all over and then just jam your foot in there and just keep it in there like you would in a game. And then watch TV for half an hour or something. And if you're committed and you're happy to get a bit messy, you can do something like this. And this basically eliminates all kind of movements at the end, and it can actually significantly add to how fast you feel. I don't know, what kind of fraction of a second we'll be talking, but it'd be something. Also very comfortable, also eliminates blisters and saves on silicone spray and stuff like that. So you can do that. Last thing to mention, I've got how fast are they? So what is the point of wearing these fins? Is there any point? And I know when people can drop $500 New Zealand dollars on a set of carbon brayers, then they look at that and then they look at these fins, which are just like a couple of $100 and they're just rubber. They kind of think, oh, can these really be that fast? And all I can say to answer that is there's some very, very, very fast people out there swimming around the pool who are wearing these, who, if you're not careful, will blast past you without apologising. So basically from the world's 2018, the last Worlds, before the world stopped, out of the top fastest people in all the different teams, I can think of the fastest guy on the Aussie team that I know of, wears Najade's. At least two of the fastest guys in the New Zealand team, including the fastest, wear Najade's. One wore irons, one wears sprints. No offense to all the other. Everyone else in my team is you guys are so fast. You're so fast. But the fastest guy, he wears sprints. There's a bunch of other guys I can think of in other countries' teams who are just as fast as those guys. Once you're super fast, they're all the same. They're all just blindingly fast. And then a whole bunch of those guys in the Turkish team, the GB team, there were guys wearing carbon brayers or other fins who were just as fast, and they were wearing those other technologies. So when it comes down to it, there's a ballpark for fast. If you've got the right fins on, it's going to help you get in that ballpark. Once you're in the ballpark, I think it's your legs that do the rest of the work. That's the way I kind of view it. And these are definitely good enough to get you in those top ballparks, and then after that, it's up to you with your legs. So, they're definitely not they're not substandard. They'll get you there, and then you have to do the rest of the work. But hey, they're cheap. They last for ages. They're comfy. They feel nice to swim in. They fit in a bag easy. There's lots to love about them. They're simple. They can't crack or break like carbon fins can. So it's just another tool in your gear bag, right? So I hope this has sort of answered some questions you might have had about Najade's, marinas, and swimming fins for underwater hockey. If you haven't tried them, maybe give them a shot, or maybe someone at your club's got them, and you can try them on. And now you know how to put them on. Now you know the right way to wear them. And good luck. See you later.